moment to learn about how it works. It might seem like a hassle at first, but the long-term benefits are hard to ignore.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Welcome back to MTsB's podcast. MTsB,
Choice,
credible,
high quality,
objective,
integrity,
construct Amalia Aiswarya.
excellent.
Now, before we start our discussion on cleaner cities and smarter transport,
We would like to open this episode with something a little unique, a short poem.
jalan-jalan ke hutan rimba.
Bawa bekal dan air putih,
Mari jaga alam bersama.
agar bumi tetap bersih.
Now, let's start by telling you who's behind the mic today. I am Aiswarya
And I'm Elsawa Azara. We're from SKS. Today, we're diving into a topic that's changing the way we move through cities, emission zones. You've probably heard the term in the news or maybe seen a road sign while traveling. But what are these zones really about and why are so many cities embracing them?
So, let's start with the basics. An emission zone is a part of a city, or in some cases, an entire urban area where rules are put in place to restrict or discourage the use of vehicles that emit high levels of pollutions.
Exactly. These zones are designed to improve air quality and reduce the health and environmental damage caused by vehicle emissions, especially from older and heavily polluting vehicles. That includes things like diesel vans, trucks, and even some old petrol cars that don't meet the current emission standards.
Right, when a vehicle enters one of these zones, it either has to meet certain emission standards or face a penalty, usually in the form of a daily charge or a fine. The aim is simple: clean up the air and encourage people to drive greener vehicles, or better yet, switch up to public transport, bikes, or walking.
Now, something we hear a lot in this discussion is the term low emission zone or LEZ. Sometimes people also mention high emission zone, which can be a bit confusing. So let's clear that up.
Alright, so before we jump into that discussion, we could be giving you some examples about the place that has been introduced by the low emission zones. Europe has been a frontrunner in this area. London, for example, it has been introduced the ultra low emission zones, or ULEZ, which has expanded several times and now covering a huge part of this area. Also, it's seen significant drops in nitrogen dioxide and other harmful pollutants.
On the flip side, a so-called high emission zone isn't an official term you'll see in regulation. It's a more of a concept used to describe areas that don't have restrictions, where any vehicles can enter regardless of how much pollution it emits.
Yeah, it is right. The low emission zone is effort that made to reduce pollution, while high emission zones are just business as usual, with no extra rules in place to curb emissions.
Alright, now that we know what emission zones are and how they work, let's talk about where they're being implemented. Because it's not just a handful of places, it's becoming a global movement.
Alright, as I mentioned earlier, that London has been introducing the ultra low emission zones. We are also know that Germany and Netherlands has been also starting to introduce about the low emission zones. And Elsawa, can you tell me another countries that start to telling more about low emission zones?
Yeah, sure. It's not limited to Europe anymore. Cities in California, like Los Angeles and San Francisco, are experimenting with low emission zones. In China, cities like Beijing and Shanghai are exploring with similar restrictions too, especially targeting high polluting trucks and buses.
Yeah, it is right. So now we're getting into the part that are really interested, uh, the benefits of emission zones. So because it's not just about the cleaner air, but it's also how the improvement of noise pollution, public health, city life, and even the economy.
Exactly. One of the most immediate and measurable benefits is the improvement in air quality. S- In cities with long-standing LEZs, studies have shown significant reduction in harmful pollutants like nitrogen dioxide and particulate matter.
Which has a direct effect on people's health. You are talking about fewer cases of asthma, lung disease, and cardiovascular issues, especially for vulnerable groups like the children, the elderly, and those with existing health conditions.
Let's not forget about the climate impact. Transportation is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, and reducing the number of polluting vehicles on the road is a powerful step toward meeting the climate targets.
Yeah, another benefit that doesn't get talked about enough is the improvement in noise pollution. So, diesel engines and heavy trucks contribute a lot to urban noise pollution. So, by reducing those vehicles, we might lead to quieter and calmer neighborhoods.
There's also an economic angle to this. Clean, walkable, bike-friendly city centers tend to attract more foot traffic. That means more people shopping locally, visiting cafes, using services, and that boosts the local economy.
So, if you live in a city with an emission zone, or maybe the one that's planning to introduce one, take a moment to learn about how it works. It might seem like a hassle at first, but the long term benefits are hard to ignore.
That's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to follow MTsB channel and share it to someone who's passionate about cleaner cities and greener futures.
Until then,
Stay green. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.